See, there's something within us that wants to leave a legacy. But here's the thing you need to know is if God asks you to do something, don't look at the size of the job, look at the size of your God who asked you to do it. See, he laid down his life for you, so that tells me that you are not worthless, you are worthy. And this is what he wants to rewrite into your story. That reality impacts everything.
Hey, small groups, welcome to week 2 of Then and Now. It's this short little series that we're doing on scriptures that meant so much then when they were first written or said, and what they mean to us even now. We heard last week as Josh opened the series on rest. We heard a lot about him coming back from sabbatical and what God taught him there. And we have a lot more to uncover there, and he has a lot more to share with us. But we also let you know that all small groups will be going through Leading Me. So this was a great resource that Josh picked up, and we're going to be marching through this starting the week of September 8th. And so if you didn't get a chance to pick up your copy this weekend, we'll continue to have them available for your small group. It's going to be a great series. Pick this up, start working through it, because we're going to start in week 3 when it comes to September 8th. And that week. And so, yeah, it'll be great. I'm excited about it. A lot more to come from God, from Josh, and all this that we're going to learn about resting in him and leading ourselves in the process. Let's get into what we're talking about today. So week 2, we're talking about unity. And that comes from John 17. Hopefully you had a chance as a small group to go through that already and read through that just to review what we talked about. Here's just a quick recap. Again, the scene is Jesus spends his final hours of his life in prayer. And one of the things that he prays for, or one of the people that he prays for, is you and me. He actually prays for you. He prays for me. And here's the topic that he prays for. Of all the things that he can choose, he chooses to pray for unity. He chooses to pray for oneness. He even paints this picture of how he, Jesus, and the Father are one. We too are supposed to be one like that. But as I was preparing for this message, and I shared this last weekend, I just know that we're not very good at it. One of my ideas that I love to do with messages is I love to turn what we're talking about into conversations. And one of the things I do sometimes is before a message, I'll get on social media and I'll be like, hey, what do you think about this? And before I did that, I just put the brakes on. I mean, could you imagine on Facebook if I did, what is the greatest threat to our unity? I mean, how many words would it take before that whole thing just blew up into this big, like, whatever, I need to take it down because people are hurting each other or speaking against each other. I wouldn't be able to do that. Why? It's a huge indicator of why maybe we can't talk about unity, or better yet, how much more we have to learn on the topic of unity. And so, again, we have a lot to learn when it comes to unity. If unity is what we're talking about, I don't see a whole lot of difference between people who are followers of Jesus and people who aren't. I just don't see a big difference there. I think that we're all kind of in this together, and we all have a whole lot to learn from that. But check out what this says in James chapter 4. I love this. As we talk about unity, and I think we can quickly just say, oh, it's all about them, or it's all about that person, or if that person would just get their act together or treat me better, I would experience unity. But here's where James chapter 4 verse 1 takes it. It says, what causes fights and quarrels among you? Great question. That's the question we're asking. But here's what he says. Don't they come from your desires that battle within you? Did you catch that? How do we get our act together on unity? How do we take huge steps forward in this area of unity? How do we grow up as a disciple of Jesus? Unity begins with you. Unity begins with me. And maybe you can talk about this in your group. Talk about a time of when your mindset shifted a little bit. Maybe it was about something that was going on with you or with another person. Maybe you took different actions. Your mindset shifted, or your actions shifted, and it brought about greater unity in your home, maybe in your family, at work, in a friendship. What happened there? What changed, or what did you change, and how did that change the relationships and the unity that you experienced. I think that when we start taking ownership of how we can make a difference in this area, I think we're in the right place for God to teach us a whole lot in the area of unity. And so if unity and experiencing it starts with you and me, what are some really practical ways that we can throw ourselves back into unity? I covered these this last weekend. Thankfully, in an area that you and I need to grow in, the Bible is not shy about teaching us about how to do this. It isn't silent about that. And so I just came up with 5 habits that the Bible talks about that we can grow in as disciples of Jesus. And if we were to do these things, we would be throwing ourselves back into unity and practicing it every day. And so number 1 was this, confront your stuff. Confront your stuff. You see, you and I have these things that we carry. They're wounds from the past. They're stuff from the family that we grew up in. It's other things that come about that we just have to own our stuff. And some of the healthiest decisions we can make when we're talking about unity or living at peace with people is just owning our own stuff. We can't control what they do. We can't control the decisions that they make or attitudes that they come in with, but we can start to control some of our own with God's help. And so dealing with some of those things, control your own stuff. The second one is talk to the person who offended you. Talk to the person who offended you. The Bible's very clear about this. You will be offended. Have you picked up on that? You will be offended. I will be offended. What are we supposed to do with that? We're not supposed to be silent about it. But we are supposed to confront those who have offended us. And this is one that I've seen over the years that more and more people are just reluctant to do. It comes kind of this way. Does it come this way with you? Sometimes people are like, you need to talk to so-and-so, or I really think this should be important to you. When the Bible actually says it's that person that should talk to that person. That's how we're supposed to do that biblically. Talk to those who have offended you. 3 was this, develop a gracious heart. Develop a gracious heart. Or another way to say it, slay your critical heart. You and I, as we live through life, we begin to create just a critical nature about ourselves if we're not careful. And what's important to know about what the Bible teaches us is that we are supposed to have a critical mind. We are supposed to test things. We are supposed to grow in discernment and wisdom, but it goes too far when our critical mind becomes a critical heart. When you have a critical heart, you are constantly walking into relationships and into areas where you honestly shouldn't be. And you start throwing out opinions that are hurtful to people rather than producing the wisdom and discernment that the Bible talks about. I even heard from a writer one time. She actually wrote a book about this, about how to create a gracious heart or develop a gracious heart. And she started a very simple practice. All she did was every day she wrote down one thing that she was thankful for. One thing that she was thankful for. And just day after day after day, it started to reorient her heart to be more gracious and to be more thankful for the things that God has given her in her life. And I think as we stare down this idea of how to change our hearts to be less critical, more loving, but to keep the critical mind, we really have to continue to be thankful for what God's given us and be discerning at the same time. Here was number 4. Number 4 was stop stirring up drama. Stop stirring up drama. And so, wow, are you the person that's known in your office, in your home, in relationships as the drama person? That is not a badge to wear proudly. I think the Bible actually even speaks against that as it talks about living with peace, living by peace with everyone as much as it depends on you, that we're called to be peaceful people as it comes to our relationships. And so if you're the drama person, wow, the Bible has a lot to say about turning that around and being someone different in those relationships. And here's the last one, learn to be led. Learn to be led. As I think about 5 habits of the disciples of Jesus as we throw ourselves back into unity, we are to be people who have to learn how to be led. So no matter if you're a strong leader or a not so strong leader, you're a good follower or not, we all come under this principle in the Bible that we have to learn how to be led. We have to learn to submit to authority that God has put over us because the Bible says these are people that God has allowed to be put over you. So whether you have a good manager or a bad manager, a great boss or a great parent or a not so great parent, these people are in our lives. And I was challenged one time from one of my mentors that said, this will never grow in you, Jeff. This will never grow in you under a great boss. It'll never grow on you. But when God gives you a boss that you're like, I'm not so sure, or I don't know how this is going to work, or even in family relationships, I don't know how this is going to work. Wow, our faith begins to grow, and we begin to grow as disciples of Jesus as we think about unity. So as I think about these 5 habits and talk to you about them, as we throw ourselves back into unity, which of these habits stung a bit? As we think about confronting your own stuff, talking to people who offended you, developing a gracious heart, not a critical one, stop stirring up drama, or learning to be led. Which one of these would you say, man, that kind of stings a little bit? As I think about my life and where I'm at, chances are, if you were to track down the answer to that question, this is your next step as a disciple of Jesus. If you are to grow in the area of unity, this is your next step. John 17 is so clear about this. I love this. If we were to get this right, if we were to get unity right, we won't just end up with healthier friendships. We won't just end up with a happier life or something like that. This is how John 17:21 puts it, that if we get this right, the whole world will see and start to believe in Jesus. The stakes are great. Like they're just, I just can't imagine that. If we were to get unity right as the people of God, people would see Jesus and they would begin to believe in Jesus. And not just some people, but the entire world. That's where John 17 leaves it. And so that's the power of unity. And my invitation this last weekend was, are you in? Are you in on that? If that is what is at stake, are you in on taking steps forward in unity? With so much on the line, I believe it's something that we have to throw ourselves into, no matter if we're good at it or not, and no matter where we've come from or where we're going, to grow in unity as disciples of Jesus. So I challenge you with that. I encourage you to continue to unpack this as a group and share stories. And I would really ask, as you share about unity, that you as a group would protect against disunity in your group, that we're not supposed to speak against people while we're talking about unity. And so really protect the conversation in there, really encourage one another and propel each other forward in this. Excited about having you unpack this a little bit, and more from the Then and Now series coming up next week. Hope you'll be there for it. It'll be great. We'll see you this weekend.